Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and now that the dust has settled with the Dark Horizon DLC in Remnant 2, I want to talk about how Gunfire Games was able to deliver a replayable experience without making it a live service game. Something that I think more developers could take note of, because there's a saturation point we've reached with the live service market. There's only so many of these games that require a ton of time to play that people can enjoy at any given time. And so because of that, and because we've had so many long-lasting live service games that really dominate the market, it is very difficult for new ones to break in. Instead, if we get more games that are replayable, that don't necessarily rely on a ton of upkeep from the developers in the same way that live service games, so they can continue to produce new content instead, I think that is a great path forward. Now, we've seen single player games have replayability in the past. Think of something like Skyrim or Elden Ring, and that is kind of leading me into Remnant, especially when we talk about more sci-fi and shooter type of games, which we don't see these experiences all the time. Take, for example, Space Marine 2. Now, I'm going to make some comparisons between Remnant 2 and other games, but I'm not saying they are exactly the same or anything. I'm just utilizing different systems that they have in place in order to encourage replayability and comparing those. So, Space Marine 2, in order to get to the next difficulty level, you have to level up your guns with experience points. You have to get new materials to level up your guns, and that's definitely an option that games take. However, Remnant 2 instead gives you new weapons to chase, new mods to chase, all that kind of good stuff for beating the hardest difficulty, and that allows you to create brand new builds that were not available before you were able to obtain them. And that's what I would like to see more of. Instead of just simply farming to increase the power of whatever you already have on hand, I want new ways to play because I was able to achieve this certain difficulty level completion. And so that's really where I think Remnant 2 shines. Not only are there a ton of secrets, we get also some rewards for completing more difficult content. Now we have the boss rush, for example, which I think is something that a lot of players who are either new to the game or maybe are lapsed players, they haven't played some of the more recent DLC, can really enjoy, because you can catch up on a lot of the rewards and experience. And adding stuff like that, I think, is very, very important, especially when you talk about the DLC, including brand new items, but also you get corrupted versions of weapons as well, so that way it modifies a playstyle of weapons you already have. And there's a lot of creative things that they're able to do with their model that didn't require seasons or a battle pass. And so instead of just grinding aimlessly because you're trying to get as much experience as possible, you can target farm for the build that you want. You can play the game and then put it down while you play other things and come back whenever you have a gap in time. I am somebody who likes to play a lot of these new games on release, and so sometimes I will put my old favorites to the side for a bit, and then when I have a gap and nothing new coming out, that's when I'll revisit my favorites and remember how much I love those games. That's what happened to me with Remnant 2, and why I've appreciated this game so much, because I've been able to farm things at my own pace, make different builds and everything, try new things. We've had buffs and nerfs along the time that the game has been out. We've got the 3 DLC, we've got the free content updates with the corrupted weapons, as well as the boss rush mode. And I compare it to something like Destiny, which adds a lot of things, right, with its live service model. And Destiny's incredibly successful. It's one of my favorite games ever. You see a lot of videos from me on this channel for Destiny, but it feels like I almost have to check in at Destiny's pace and not really treat the game as something that I can play when and I want to enjoy it. And that's the major difference between a live service game and this DLC model we've gotten. So much so that Destiny is actually changing that into more of a DLC model starting next year, which I will find very, very fascinating. Now, some things that games like this absolutely need that I feel like, for example, Space Marine might have missed, and even Borderlands sometimes might be missing out on, and that is the secrets that you want the community to find. There are some things that it was almost impossible for the community to figure out. For the very first new archetype that we got, the Archon, was only available once it was data mined, because the developers knew that was going to happen, kind of an Easter egg, and then you had to do a lot of different things in order to obtain it. And I thought that was an absolutely fascinating way to approach getting new things in the game that people are searching for. You want secrets to find, you want replayability. They have the randomly generated adventures that you can do, or the campaign that has different routes, different dungeons. My playthrough, especially the first 2-3 times, won't be the same as anybody else's. You got different bosses at the end of these playthroughs as well. Different world bosses you can possibly fight. If you do certain activities or get certain items, you can change the fight against that world boss and also get brand new items instead. And all of that is what I think a game of this nature, which might not have the amount of content as a 90-hour single-player game, but the replayability allows it to extend that time frame quite a bit. And it never felt like I was playing Remnant 2 and I got bored of replaying some of the activities because of the new weapons that I would get and try out. That the builds felt completely different. You could run a build that I made that is completely melee fists only and just tank everything, or you can run a sniper sharpshooter build that absolutely one-shots a lot of the enemies in the game. And because of that diversity, that's really where I personally believe Remnant 2 has been able to shine in a way that other games do struggle. Strictly linear games are very good. I do very much enjoy single player games. However, if you have the goal of making a game replayable, it needs some iteration. For example, Helldivers 2 was able to create different experiences just because every map, every mission feels a little bit unique because of the way the enemies attack, because of all the different stratagems and weapons you can use. And over time, it did lose a little bit of steam, but all they have to do is add a DLC-like content drop, for example, a new enemy type or something of that nature, and I believe everyone will be jumping back into the game and enjoying it once again because of the randomization that takes place. That is something that I think developers often forget. The main reason people like PvP and those types of games is that they get into situations where every game feels different. I can have one game where I'm popping off and I'm playing really well, another game where I'm struggling, but maybe I clutch up at the end. And those are experiences you don't always get in PvE games, especially if you don't have difficult dungeons or raids a la Destiny or other types of content that really push you to your limit. And I hope going forward, if we're going to see more games move away from the live service model, they do look at Remnant 2 for inspiration and take some of those lessons that the game has taught us. I do feel like the game is fantastic. I have really enjoyed myself. I will continue playing the game for the foreseeable future, and I hope you do too. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. My name is Jopa. Have a good one. Like the video, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff, and I'll catch you all later.